Yeah. So just to start with, maybe if you can tell us a little bit about, what you do, and I guess what's your role in horticulture, in particular with mangoes.
Yep. Well, we're a specialist exporter. That's probably the key definition of what we are. So we don't grow, we don't retail. We literally buy farm gate or delivered to ourselves. And say, for example, mangoes delivered to Brisbane, so we can export out of Brisbane. We were one of the first to do exports from New Zealand of mangoes through the irradiation process. And yeah, that's probably where we sit. We're the middleman. It'll be a very challenging place to be at this point in time.
And do you purchase the product? Who retains ownership of the product?
We generally, with the export, we purchase the product based on acceptance of quality on arrival. So on arrival here in Brisbane, for our quality assurance, we do our QC check and verify that we're happy with the quality. It is as per what we thought we were buying. And then that's where ownership generally changes hands.
Okay.
So we don't generally organise freight. We allow the growers to organise freight. We nominate a place of delivery. We expect check quality on arrival, and that's where ownership changes hands.
So you set the quality standards that the growers need to comply with.
Generally, we try and get an understanding of how they're grading. Unfortunately, different packers have different interpretation of what is a premium, what is an export grade, what's a class 1 grade, what's a... It's very subjective. It is a terribly objective grading system at the moment. So some people do full blush for China market, backdoor into Hong Kong, and they'll grade out every single bit of fruit that has blush. So I'm talking R2 inches. So they might take out all their blush fruit, and then they're left with generally a pretty clean but completely green line, and they want good money for it. Now, unfortunately, with mangoes, there's no market for no blush fruit. So sometimes and they're influenced by the Chinese buyers that are at shed door offering cash up front, and so I think there's been challenges in the industry of recent years where people buying shed door are affecting the quality standards or the grading standards throughout the industry. So we might find that what is available in the domestic wholesale market is no blush fruit that's clean, or very small fruit that's blushed, and it's not a real picture of what's available. So that's why we buy from both growers and packers, shed door, or delivered market, and also we do utilise the wholesale markets.
You did say that some of the Chinese buyers are coming and buying directly from the farm.
Yes.
Is that increasing? Is that quite common now?
It's quite common now. It's probably been increasing over the last 4 to 5 years. But it's a significant competitive threat for my company on mangoes, but not only cherries, grapes, citrus, stone fruit, everything, to be honest.
And I guess what you're saying, that it impacts on quality because they are taking at the farm level the best, and they're leaving the lower qualities, I guess, if you want to call it. But for you, there's not a market for that product in the market.
That's right.
Oh, okay. When you set your quality standards, do you have what are the variables you look for?
Generally, for us, it's blush and cleanliness, so aesthetics. Obviously, we expect the growers to be picking it in a dry manner that's mature, that enables a good eating experience. That is assumed. That we generally try and pick the growers and packers that are doing that and doing the right job. We generally don't like to ship early fruit because it's sometimes questionable eating quality. But saying that, we've been shipping for 3 weeks now into New Zealand. KP's out of the Northern Territory and R2's out of the Northern Territory. So there we're looking at aesthetics and what the market can accept. Keep in mind and assuming that the eating quality is there.
So with the dry matter, do you test for dry matter?
We don't. No.
With do you have any protocols for temperature?
We don't, to be honest, no. We don't have. We test and temperature probe our stuff on arrival, and if it's too hot, we notify the grower and we'll determine whether or not we'll use it.
Yeah.
So, for example, if it's at 20 or 22 or 23 degrees, we'll notify the grower and say, hey, didn't really arrive at the correct temperature. So most of my QCs know that temperature on arrival needs to be sort of like that, 13 to 17 level, sort of put to sleep.
If it is higher than like 19, 20, what happens? Do you send the product back, or do you just reduce the price, or do you find a market, or what happens?
It depends how forward the fruit is. If it's arrived at that sort of temperature out of the territory, you don't want to be touching it. But because we don't deal direct with the territory anyway, we deal with wholesale agents. That's the problem. We don't know whether or not it's turned up warm. But generally, you can slow it back down by getting it back down to that 14 degrees. It's just firmness is the other thing that I meant to mention. So if it's soft and backward colour, we're not interested in touching it. It's not going to do the job. It's not going to give the consumer a good eating experience. So we're looking for a firm piece of fruit as well. So if it comes in at 20 and it's solid and firm, and it's a colour stage around, say we ordered 2 to 3 and it's coming at 3 to 4, we'll make an assessment based on the market conditions, based on the customer. We'll probably inform the customer, notify the customer, show them the photos, show them that it's firm, but it's this colour stage, it's going to be further forward than what you thought, and try and take out any of the risks of having a problem. We'd then get the temperature down at 14 degrees as quickly as possible to stop it doing anything until it gets to the customer.
The cost of getting the temperature down from 20 to 14 in the time that takes to do that, who bears that cost?
Well, generally it's part of any storage arrangement we have with any of our loaders. They'll give us free cooling for 24 to 48 hours based on what we're doing. So generally we're okay. There's not an increase. It's covering the cost of the transport and loading and delivery to docks. So there hasn't been to this point an issue with having to take on additional costs for cooling per se.
Do you do ripening here?
No, we don't. So, I don't generally like to export gas ripened fruit. It comes up with a different sort of colour, and the markets are now becoming more aware of what that looks like. So it doesn't come up with the same finished colour as a tree ripened ready to go. So if you're gas ripening to try and bring it on, I can understand it. You're trying to have consistency in the colour and the offering. But for the export markets, generally most of the smart guys know when something's been gas ripened. And they will prefer to wait and have just a non-gassed fruit.
So that will be for the overseas markets, maybe. And they're aware of that. They're sophisticated to be aware of.
Well, the guys that have been doing it a long time. I think some of these guys that are buying shed door with the cash aren't as smart. And I think that that's why every year it's a different crew that come through.
Some of them went bankrupt.
Some of them have lost their money in the casino.
When the product arrives at your collection center, and you say you do probing, how do you do that? How do you check that? Do you always check the temperature when it arrives?
Yes. That's part of our requirement. That's part of our HACCP accreditation. That's what we do.
But you check the product just because it's part of your requirement. You don't check it, so you will, I guess, reject the product. You just check it as part of your normal process.
It's part, and if it's too hot, then there is notifications are going.
So why is it sometimes why do you think sometimes it's too hot? Because you've had that experience before. So what?
Sometimes there could be a need to get it to the market quickly. So you're shipping pack stock from the day rather than the stuff being packed allowing it overnight to cool and getting shipped the next day. There could be a requirement that air freight is short. The only air freight we can get for the next 4 days is tomorrow. Get it on tonight's truck, please. I need it tomorrow. I have to get it in there tomorrow. And sometimes you will, as an exporter, for logistics reasons, have to take some calculated risks.
But you are aware that's happening. You are okay with that?
Other times it could be that you've got a driver who doesn't start his motors, says or starts him at Caboolture. He's coming down from Bali and he's only just turned it on. Geez, that's right, I forgot to turn the motor on. So there's a lot of different reasons. There could be breakdowns and things. Okay. Generally in transit, there's more often than not, it's human error that causes there to be a temperature issue. The only other reason is there's a time expediency requirement. Otherwise, there shouldn't be problems.
Okay. You are aware that? Are you aware if most growers are cooling the product before it's being shipped?
Some growers we deal with don't have big cool stores. Okay. So, and that's just part of the industry. There's some small or medium-sized packers still don't have massive cool rooms, which to me seems a little bit crazy. You spend a lot of money growing a crop and then you don't have the, even a small fridge to keep it in at its optimal. So
they just leave it outside, hopefully expect it to...
Well, either that or they expect the trucking companies to have those logistical and requirements. So they say, hey, look, I've got 5 pallets, can you come and pick them up and get them cooled before going? So sometimes you'll find growers will use, and packers will use the transport companies' facilities to have a pre-cooling.
Okay, before it is shipped. Oh, well. But I just want to show you some of the new temperature monitoring tools that are being used. So do you regularly use these ones?
Don't.
Or the type?
We don't use that one?
No, not the brand, but the type of USB.
I'm waiting until I bring down and show you the ones that we use. But we use these in... we don't use them from shed to us. And sometimes with air freight. Hello. Hey, Alistair. Hey, can you just can you ask Lee for just a couple of examples of our data loggers that we use for our in transit? Can you bring them down, right? Can you just grab a couple and bring them down? Cheers, mate. So we use them, say, for sea freight more so than air freight. Okay. Air freight generally you shouldn't have a problem unless you're transshipping. So if we're going to Hong Kong with Singapore Airlines, sometimes that's a concern. If you're, say, going to Malaysia out of the Gold Coast, which doesn't have any cold rooms, that can be a concern. You can end up with strawberry jam, for example. Rather than fresh strawberries. Because there's been a delay and they've left them out on the tarmac for 24 hours. Just experience. Just depends on the risk. Exactly. Depends on the risk and the calculator risk. Thank you. Thanks, Ray. So this is what we use for ours. Similar sort of thing.
So these are USB?
Yeah. They just bang them in.
So this is just temperature. Can I take a photo?
That's no problem at all. The only thing I say about these, and I like the fact that there's actually something large and big that you can identify where it is. It's amazing the Americans still use the big, mechanical, because you can always find them. Some of the biggest problems we have is we put data loggers in there and people can't find them. And if there's a problem, you say, what's the temperature? We couldn't find them, which is an easy excuse.
And
but say, for example, if we're doing cherries, which is very high cost and very high cost for very high invoice cost, $30 for one of these is not a big spend for the insurance it provides. So if you're transshipping aeroplanes, it's through airports, then there is added risk, especially if you're landing stuff in summertime in high humidity warm countries and it's not being taken care of. there's an inherent risk. Likewise, if you're going into Russia, when we used to go into Russia, the chances it's getting frozen on arrival. You know, so you end up with mango ice blocks because it's -10 on arrival, and you how do you keep? So there's some challenges there with air freight, for sure. But we've done both. We do sea freight and air freight. We do sea freight into New Zealand, and we've had very good arrivals. We've had some challenging arrivals, but you know, for sea freight, if you're I think we set our containers around 12 to 13 for, and as long as it turns up and it's irradiated and it's at the right stage and it's firm, it turns up, and you can have some very good you know, success there, I suppose, in getting through the retailers and getting through to consumers, and the consumer having a good experience.
So the main reason why you will be using this is when you can see there are some risks in the transport.
Yeah.
And that will be mainly for insurance.
That's exactly right.
For if any potential insurance claims.
That's right. Yeah. And so for our insurance to be valid, we need to have one or two of those in every container.
In every container. Okay.
But we don't insure for air freight. There's there shouldn't be too much that changes within a 24-hour period from uplift to delivery. It's not saying that it has happened to us. You know, and delays at airports and those sorts of things have a flow-on effect.
You say you don't insurance for air freight. Is that just typical of the industry?
Typical for the industry. Look, it's a very low margin industry, to be honest with you. We've got some, I think we've got some competitors out there who failed maths in year 2 and don't actually know what a percentage margin is, because they're willing to do it for very small money. So they do very low margin, high risk business. And unfortunately, in certain markets, that's what we're up against. So even a $30 or $40 temperature logger, when the whole, there'll be people that probably make on some mango shipments. So you're talking a mango, the biggest load of mangoes is probably 540 thereabouts trays for a 4.5 tonne lot. You might have people that are working on 50 cents to $1 a tray margin.
Wow.
So they might be only making $250 to $300 per 4 tonne lot, and then if you put that in, they're only making $250. They might only be making $200, and that's on a 30. It can be a $15,000 to $20,000 invoice. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. But by saying that, that's what I'm competing with. So at times, it's very much about keeping that cost of delivery to market as low as possible, to compete with what some of our competitors are doing.
So those competitors you're talking about are those like local, like Australian competitors, or talking about the Chinese buyers?
Brisbane competitors.
Brisbane competitors. Well, they won't be local business. That's harsh, because and that will have an impact on the quality of the fruit, I expect.
Well, it shouldn't, as long as it's once again, majority, if it comes out of the shed correctly, and it's moved quickly through the chain, we shouldn't leave too much of an impact or a fingerprint on the quality. There's not much that we do to the fruit that, for example, if we're doing mangoes to Singapore, they come in, we see them, sales done, they're loaded, they're gone. It's that quick. The irradiation process, that's a bit different. Obviously, we're trucking it up to irradiation, and we're then bringing it back, and so there's a bit more movement, there's a bit more transport, and with certain varieties, any movement or transport has the potential to damage them. KPs, for example, are softer skinned, or any of the KP derivatives are softer skinned and therefore more prone to damaging. R2 is a robust bit of fruit, so they can handle a bit of a transit bump.
When you're going through the irradiation, do you place this before or after?
After.
So when
that's a good question. It's actually worth probably considering. I don't know whether or not the fuel source would destroy what effect we'd have, or whether or not we're allowed to put that in through stereotypes.
I'm not aware of anything that can go with the radiation.
So
But they have made changes. I mean, I've been through the plant a lot of times. They've made changes where they've actually got cold room motors in the actual treatment room, so they're trying to maintain apart from those 2 metres of cement, so it's pretty cool inside the treatment chambers anyway. But yeah, and it's a pretty quick process. It's about, as long as they don't have hydraulic breakdowns, you're at 40 minutes in and out. So for the fruit, they push it through pretty quickly. So I know what you're saying, that they now have cold rooms there for receival and dispatch, so they certainly have spent money to, from when the first days where she was just a tin shed and it was like, screaming at the truck driver, don't leave. As soon as it gets out, get it on the truck and get it back. We want it back. Certainly they have improved their cold chain management.
Okay.
But apart from that, look, honestly, there's not too many breaks in the cold chain. There shouldn't be. The only thing is obviously on the back of a truck or an open truck from here to the airport in the middle of summer, foiled up, you could get a bit warm.
Do you have any issues with the freight at Qantas? Because I've been told that they don't have cold rooms there.
We don't generally store stuff, Qantas. We're literally there the 2 hours before cut-off. So, the cut-off of the plane's 2 hours before the plane departs.
Okay, so the risk is minimum.
The risk is minimal. We don't ever store stuff at Qantas Drive. And if anything's missed a flight, or it's been offloaded, we'll take it back and put it into cold storage. We won't leave it at Qantas.
Okay, so if anything, it'll just be 2 hours there.
2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours max, we'll turn around and bring it back.
And on the terminal in the markets, you're saying, do you have any issues with that, with the temperature?
No, generally, you have some, it depends. I mean, if you're buying direct from grower, it's no problem, it comes into our loader. Either that or our own facility, which we used to have, and we're looking after it. If you're buying off a wholesale agent, you just got to be a bit careful because you just don't know the history of the product. And we can only control it while it's in our hands, while it's in our responsibility, under our responsibility. So when we go to a wholesale and say, hey, look, we need some mangoes. These just came in last night. And they came in last week. So you go, right, okay, no worries. And you look at them and they're colour stage 2 and they're soft. You go, okay, maybe not. So there's a lot of they're not taught to there's not too many people there that are taught to be completely upfront and honest with what's happened with the fruit. They're taught to sell the fruit at all means and all costs. So, saying that there's some very good ones that we trust, implicitly to do the job and work with us on what we're looking at, and we work with them when they've got trucks coming in from the from the territory. We'll work with them and make sure we're trying to place orders in advance prior to arriving.
And in the overseas markets,
at
the freight in the overseas markets, maybe in New Zealand you don't have any problems, but places like Hong Kong, Malaysia, as you said, when they arrived over there, do you have any problems with the cold storage?
Well, generally it's not in our control at that point. It's our general selling terms are cost and freight, so CFR, so it's to land and to port. Saying that, do our customers have problems? Potentially, yes, at times. I know Singapore is very well set up with cold rooms now, and receival logistics is very, very well controlled. In KL, Malaysia, probably a little bit less. Generally, if you've got a good customer, they're desperate for the product, they want it. So the only way it's going to spoil, and it has, is if it stays on tarmac, or there's a delay with loading, or there's a breakdown on tarmac, with equipment or handling. And that's why, I know Wellcamp's, very excited about their freighter service, but we don't use freighters. So the other thing we don't use freighters because they take too long to unload.
So do you do it yourself? Everything?
No, as in planes. So we only go with passenger lines, not.
Okay, freight line.
So rather than the big freighters that all they carry is freight. Hello. Yep.
Sorry. Yeah, that's all ready to go.
Is it? Right, no worries. Okay. What temperature is the stuff at? Around 11 to 15?
Sorry?
Around 11 to 15?
Yeah, 13 35's the lowest I got, and that was 24.
Right, no worries. Cool. Sorry, just got a fumigation we're going to be doing. Yeah, so generally it's you want to be on a passenger line, so you want to keep the time frame as efficient as possible and as smooth as possible. Any delays will obviously cause issues for customers and therefore the flow on is to ourselves.
If the customers overseas are not happy with the product you got, they received, they come to you, or they go directly to the or the wholesaler.
Whoever's done the invoicing, so they generally come to us and say, hey, we're not happy. This is what we're not happy with. And sometimes that's legitimate. Sometimes it's market issues. If you've got a good customer, he'll be honest enough to say, hey, it's the market conditions that we've got troubles with. We've had people who bought an office into Hong Kong and they've tried to claim because the border's closed and there's a 5-day delay. And I said, well, I'm not actually delivering to China. Sorry, my contract with you was delivered to Hong Kong. If you want to take that risk, you take that risk. It's not on my back. And they say, oh, we're going to lose money. I said, well, that's not my fault. Your Chinese border is closed. Sorry. End of story. So, you'll have customers that will always ask. Sometimes they're relevant issues. And sometimes they're subjective and hard. So sometimes it might be the fruit is not coloured enough. It's still at stage 2 or 3, and you're trying to explain, look, one day and it'll be 3 and 4 in your country. Just chill out. Right? It's not forward enough, not backward enough. It's not this. It's not that. Not as much blush as I thought. There's a multitude of excuses we've had over the years on reasons why there's assistance required on mangoes.
But with the if there's a real problem, like a real problem, so how do you deal with that?
As best we can. We talk to the grower and ask for help if they're willing to assist. We explain the problem. We generally, if it's a serious problem, we'll get an independent survey verifying percentage of issues. And with that, you obviously do take a risk of delaying the sale. The first sale is the best sale. You don't want to ever get into a fire sale situation where you've waited that long that it has to be dumped or. You want to be able to independently verify. That's just for everyone's sake.
So you've got people in the market doing that? Or do you travel?
We're just independent companies that do it. So they'll do that and verify the percentage. The customer still has to go and sell the fruit. So, and then it's just a negotiation or coming to a common ground, and sometimes it takes 1 or 2 days, sometimes it can take 1 or 2 weeks, sometimes it can take 3 months, depending on what product you're doing.
I'm just talking again about this. Like you've been using this one. Have you seen this one before?
No.
Okay. RFID. No, give me a hand with that one.
So while you're unwrapping that one, this one you've seen before. I actually put the trace on this because I find it hard to find them in cartons. So I normally sort of put this on the outside of the tray. And then the trace goes into the fruit, so then I can just put my finger inside. And pull it out. Just so I can sort of hook it underneath the fruit, but then I can also retrieve it pretty easily without having to de-stack the pallet, because I really hate de-stacking pallets when I don't have to. There's a range of these sort of ones, and the Sensitech Temtails are one of those. But there's 2 other types we're investigating as part of our project. This one was a Xsense System 1. And it works off, it's an Israeli system which works off radio frequency connection. So it has a communications unit that has to go near to be able to download its data. So so normally if people are using this, they'll have at least 2, probably 3 communication units attached to them. So while the sensors are the same price, $30, the actual communication unit is like $1,000.
Wow. Okay. So that's your download.
So that's your downside of it, but it means you can get effectively data reliably without having to retrieve, which is one of those big issues. So commonly you'll have it at the freight forwarder in Australia and at the importer, something like that, and that gives you at least the temperature trace of that period.
Yes.
And there's a few different ones similar to this which work off that sort of radio frequency approach.
Yeah. Okay.
The third type, which Edith wanted to show you, was this type. Now I've actually removed the battery out of it.
I do.
Get it now.
This one's
I didn't want to bend it.
This one's based on SIM card technologies.
Okay.
So this one actually, this one's got a little Vodafone SIM card on it.
Yeah.
Sorry, just so you can see it. This one works on the basis that it sends a text message to a receiver, which then downloads it into the internet, so that you can get data as long as it can access it. You can then determine location by triangulation, and it can download the data.
Yeah, okay.
And so this can go, we know exactly which dump these things end up in China and various other places, because it just keeps going until it runs out of juice.
Wow, okay.
But the advantage of this is that as long as you're not going through irradiation, and as long as you're going sea freight, you can pretty much track the whole chain through from the grower through to the dump.
Yeah.
Which gives you exposure to what happens between importer and retailer and all that sort of stuff, which can be quite complex depending on which country and what route it's going through.
Yeah.
So that's another technology we're looking at, which to some degree gives us some real-time stuff as well. So you can find out where your product is and what temperature it's at and all that sort of stuff. But the limitations are that particular one, even though there are ones that can go on airplanes, this particular one hasn't got authority yet for Australian planes.
Yeah.
There are other brands that do, but both these other types are non-retrieval types. So the problem we've sort of heard from a lot of people who've used temperature monitoring is that they stand often about a 20% chance of getting them back is the hurdle with a lot of them. You may do better than that.
No.
But partly because of the sort of research angle of it, but also just in terms of, well, if you're going to put 5 in to get 1 back, what's the economics like? And
look, Zespri put a hell of a lot in. I know Zespri put a bucket load in, and it's almost every third pallet.
So you can investigate a whole range of things depending on costs and all the rest of it and the technologies you use. But they're the 3 main sorts of technologies. Now there's probably 40 different examples across those 3 platforms. And part of the work that we're doing is one element of it is comparing some of the technologies and their utility. How easy is it to get data back, to overlay graphs, to be able to sort of compare different logger results, that sort of stuff. Because sometimes if you've got more than one logger in a load, the value is in comparing the loggers, not just seeing the individual graphs. And with a lot of technologies that just provide you with one graph in a PDF format, the utility of that is not great to be able to really make best use of the data.
Exactly.
But they're the sort of the platforms for the 3 platforms of technologies that we're looking at in the project, and hence Edith is looking at in terms of people's considering different technologies.
And I guess and one of the things that you just told us that the main reason why you're using this is minimize risk to insurance. So I just want to see where do you see any value in using any of these or the tools, given that what you're using them for.
For what we do, possibly. Ease of use is obviously a major thing for us. How quickly, and more so our receiving customers' capabilities. The amount of times we've got issues and we've had to actually courier the things back so we can download the data and get it to our insurance company and see what's happened. So ease of use for our customer, I suppose, is the main thing. Their ability to use it is the most important thing for us.
And your customers haven't had any problems with using this so far?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I've been told. A lot of the sea freight we've been doing is into New Zealand anyway from here. That's what we do. Who our loaders, what sort of equipment our loaders use. When we're shipping out of Melbourne or Mildura or Sydney, and we're saying, hey, we need 2 temperature recorders in there. And they put 2 temperature. We don't know what equipment they're using. The digital ones, and that's all we know. So until we get them, we have a problem on arrival. We're using whatever our loading company uses.
You only get them back when there is a problem.
That's it.
Yeah. If there is not a problem, what happens to them?
No, I'm not sure.
They just get strong. So because of that, will you see?
Many boxes are full of.
Yeah.
You have to.
They'll never get downloaded.
No, they'd never get down. Well, that's not a bad thing. I mean, the fact that they haven't been downloaded is not a bad thing. It's still very useful to have a look at the data, I find, and see what's happening.
With these ones here, because that will mean that you must have a receiver. The maintenance, it can be useful for your own business and for the industry in general.
Oh, look, it depends how big we get in regard to sea freight, and that's that's the main and say for example with mangoes, they're pretty robust. I know they're not, but they're pretty robust in a temperature range. Certainly for the cherries, if you're talking 20-foot containers of cherries, I can see real value in using better technology in higher priced, more highly perishable products, where temperatures are real key. Like with cherries, if you're above 1, you're in trouble. Then any delay in getting it back below 1 is a problem. So, for example, with mangoes, I think just given how brutal the margins are in the trade, adoption of higher price technology or better technology isn't on the radar for a lot of the exporters also.
Well, these ones, because they relied on the mobile network.
Yes.
Do you think there'll be maybe a problem using this against in rural Australia and also on the overseas market?
Very much so. And if you even take it from packing shed, just capabilities down the east coast of Australia, not too bad. But so if you bring it in from the territory, you're only going to be in range every major centre for about 10 minutes before you're out of range again. So the capabilities, unless it's a Telstra SIM card, you're not going to have a lot of coverage until you hit the coast. That's there's challenges there. I see the benefits of having live data available to you. If you bought something and you're shipping and you're in control of it from the shed, and you've got big licks of it. If you've got 2 trailers, you bring in a B double and it's highly perishable and highly expensive. And of course, there's value in maintaining that, and having that live tracking. But there's certainly challenges with that style of receiver, I suppose, because you're going to lose a bit of. Well, you won't lose the data. The data will be still being tracked. It's just it'll only be available every now and again, and you just got to make sure you know when that truck's flying through that town.
With the with these ones here, similar to these ones, the chart that you get, are they easy to read?
Pretty reasonable to read, yeah.
So your staff are aware how to read.
Look, and we know. So we got one back the other day, and it was there was a short spike after loading. Obviously, it was off power once it was being loaded on the vessel. And to me, it looked like there might have been a delay in getting it back powered up or so. But when there was a 2 or 3 hour delay, we had a problem with the fruit. But whether or not it was a long enough delay to concern the insurance company to take it on with the sea freight company, I'm not sure. But so for that perspective, it really is. It only comes down to any major temperature fluctuations. I mean, if it's on defrost cycle or that, so we're not using it, say, for example, for in-transit cold treatments, which is, where there's probably value in the some of the products probably out there at the moment where you're actually probing and have trial weight rather than having to spend $1,000 on a USDA probed container. If we had disposable units that were accurate and could, able to be down and loaded, and I suppose approved by the government officials from the importing country, then I think there's real value there.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you had say $50 to $60 units that were had highly sensitive, highly and approved, then that's a
Right.
well, you need 4 for a container, so you're say $400 instead of $1,000. So there's a real saving there, and then you don't have to worry about whether or not there's USDA equipment available. You can just grab any good reefer, make sure you've got a good equipment, and have a calibration verification service with Aquis anyway. But I think there's real value in the technology then, and then also having the ability in transit to be able to live track it would be good, because if there was an issue, you know there's an issue. You're notified of the problem. It's alarmed. If it's alarmed, it's an in-transit cold treatment. It's failed. So how far out of port is it? When it's failed, can you reset it and start again? Or is it so far into the voyage that it's on the way to, for example, it's on the way to Thailand, you're 10 days into the voyage and you're 2 days out of Singapore and it alarms. As an exporter, we've got an option. Okay, do we pull it off in Singapore and sell it to a Singapore customer rather than taking it to Thailand and failing? So, there's value in it from an exporter's perspective in that style of technology ability, where rather than just having a USDA container which flies into Thailand, they open it up, no, it's failed, get it, piss it off, send it somewhere else. And we've got $5,000-6,000 extra in charges, and we're landing it in Singapore and losing a lot of money. So that's where I think there's real value, as well as that highly perishable, highly expensive market of blueberries, cherries, those style products.
Because when you're saying that, because mango is a bit more robust,
yes,
and the margins are so low, the extra investment may be worth it. Yeah.
That's right.
That's what
unless you're sea freighting. If you're sea freighting 40 footers, then there's still, there's enough there to make, you need to protect yourself anyway. You need to make sure that the sea freight company, the transport company's done the right thing, that they've kept it on power for as long as possible.
So is there many breaks in that system?
The only break generally should be when the truck gets offloaded at the wharf. It'll be off power. If you're in transit cold treatment, you should be using trucks that have generators, so it's on power from loader to the wharf. If it doesn't have a generator, then you're off power from the loader to the wharf. It's powered back on at wharf. It's off power while it gets craned. It's then back on power as soon as it's loaded. So there are breaks, and there's always a break from wharf to the ship when it's being loaded, when it's going over the rail. So there'll always be that break in the power. So it's just how quickly, and sea freight companies know which ones are the in-transit cold treatment containers. They know which ones that literally they're the ones that are alarmed, that they have to be up like that. If it alarms in the middle of the night, they're up and running.
Because they are taking the risk.
They're taking a portion of the risk as well.
Okay. With in the horticulture industry in general, do you feel that there is transparency on the way transactions occur?
No, not really.
What do you mean?
Look, it depends. There's an element in the export community or in the horticultural community where transparency's never been a good thing. There's that old school mindset. The grower doesn't need to know where it's been sold. That's certainly changed.
We're talking about the wholesalers.
We're very open with our packers on what we're trying to do with the product and where it's going. Who the actual customer is, possibly not. That's information's probably too much information.
Yeah, there's some commercial.
Well, and not that it's not easy to find these days. It's but we just had one of our oldest customers go around us to one of our oldest suppliers. And they decided they'd work together and not use me. So, and that's disappointing when that happens. So there's still that element Unfortunately, I think there's an element out there in the industry that feels that exporters are making a lot of money, and it's it's a big margin, and that's probably a roll-on effect from the probably 15, 20 years ago when that was possibly the case. But it's certainly not the case anymore. Export is certainly a high-risk game, and it doesn't make commercial sense to play a low-margin, high-risk game. If it's low-margin, low-risk, not such a problem. But all that you need to work on then is your volume. So if you're low-risk, low-margin, high-volume, that commercially works. Low-margin, high-risk doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. And unfortunately, that's where growers are getting hurt, because they're thinking they're getting the best possible money by someone, oh, this person's offering another $2 higher than you, but they don't realise they're making nothing on it. So the exporter's not an exporter, it's just a shipping company. So, and then you've got, it's just been an evolution of, then the growers have to pay if there's a problem, because there's no margin for the exporter to take it. So then the grower goes, well, why am I using the exporter? I might as well just sell direct. Which is exactly fair enough. So there's been an evolution there in regard to for us as exporters to maintain our value in the supply chain, especially when we are the professional middleman. The access to grower, the access to customers is never been easier than it is today. With when I joined the industry 15 years ago, 17 years ago now, we didn't have the internet. There wasn't LinkedIn. There wasn't social media. No one had a website. It's so easy for our buyers to just come and find what they're looking for. And vice versa for our growers to go and find what they're looking for.
Someone is doing logistics though.
Someone has to still do logistics. And unfortunately, some freight forwarders are offering export services. So someone's still shipping the guys who are paying upfront cash in advance. Someone's providing them with a service. I can't go to Qantas and buy my own freight. I have to use a freight forwarder. But it seems like freight forwarders like to be quasi-exporters and provide assistance to anyone. So there is an issue there in Australia, I think, with that freight forwarder-exporter relationship has been blurred. But saying that, we still got some, some of our oldest, relationships, and a lot of growers focus just solely and wholly on growing, making sure they're doing everything they can to get the best possible product in the box and leave everything else up to people that do the job. So no, it's not without its challenges, that's for sure.
Well, thanks for that. That's pretty good. I'm just wondering whether if we were going, because the department is testing this system. Do you want to talk about the project just a little bit, how you're going through?
So there's actually a couple of projects that I'll probably mention. One, because you mentioned the issue with the US recording devices for sea freight protocol. There is a project funded under the ATMAC program being done in New South Wales to look at alternatives to the current monitoring systems. However, the project I work on is probably looking more just at people in the supply chain using different sorts of technologies as to both monitor and identify weaknesses that can be improved, and while doing that, comparing a few of the different technologies that are about for that. And then a big part of the project is also collecting enough data so that we can interpret what that data means in terms of impact on fruit deterioration and shelf life in the market. So when you get your results back from the sensor tech gear, we're looking at a way to be able to plug that through a model and then say, well, look, by all the information, it should still have 4-day shelf life or whatever at the water. And we're working across a range of commodities on that. So mango is one of them. This last season we also did a fair bit of work on nectarines, some work on table grapes, currently doing work on citrus, and about to start working on bananas and a few different vegetables. So that's sort of it's going to be an ongoing project for a number of years, and because we're also looking at, we're we're being told we really should talk to the cherry guys and we really should talk to a few others, but it's also about critical mass. I mean, we want to make sure we're spending enough resources and time on.
Well, I think the main value is going to be in the sea freight marketing system rather than the air freight. So you've got to look at the big ones, your grapes and citrus.
So we couldn't ignore those.
No.
But even in that, we're conscious of both the variability that can and does happen in both the sea and air, because there are some probably still significant issues in air.
Oh, there is.
And both in hot and cold results. That really just goes so far out of whack, it is causing issues. But part of the project is drawing on one of the things you mentioned, and that's some of the data that has value in identifying small problems before they become big problems, and small improvements that can improve the supply chain. So we're focusing on the reliability about getting the data and being able to use the data to make better decisions. So that's what the project I'm working on is. It's a project which is co-funded by some of the people in the industry, as well as by a number of research partners and Horticulture Innovation Australia. So it's a project which Queensland Department is heading up, but we've got collaboration with Victorian Ag, with the group down at AgriBio and the group at Tatura. There's also links with University of Queensland, University of Southern Queensland, Chinese Academy of Sciences, and we're currently developing up a relationship with Wageningen University in the Netherlands to involve them as well. Just from the modelling and from even those guys are monitoring mango shipments into China, just like we are. I mean, it's a small world, really. As we're saying, with technology and stuff now. So that's the sort of project I'm working on. I'm taking a role in the information and communication side of it. Even though I do get a bit involved with traipsing over to Kale and various other places doing outturns and stuff. And we're very much not only doing outturn work ourselves, but also trying to rely on networks of outturn assessors to help us out as well, like we did 2 weeks ago with the lemon consignment into Jakarta, just to sort of get good data on the successive consignments that were coming in there.
Excellent.
So
we'll keep in touch. If you need anything, let me know.
And just before, what do you think of the department getting involved in projects like that, testing of these new technologies?
Oh, look, it's good. I think as an industry, I think at times we're just too busy doing the trade rather than looking at ways to improve. So any help is, I think, greatly needed. We are in a very competitive world. We're a high-cost producer. We stand on the clean and green and our quality, and at times we've got the clean and green, we don't have the quality. So we're busily trying to make sure we are sustainable in the export markets, but we have South Africa, we have South America, we've got Chile and Peru, who are probably and we can't forget New Zealand. They're all probably batting well and truly above us. And so I think in the past we've relied heavily on the fact that other Southern Hemisphere competitors haven't been able to do the job, and I think that's probably turned around to a point where we're not doing the job from a quality standard. We expect a premium, but we're not actually delivering a premium. We're delivering a substandard product at times, or an inconsistent product at times.
Why do you think is that? Why?
Because it's subjective. It's a subjective grading standard on colour, taste. Most of the things that are important to our Asian customers, aesthetics, colour and taste, are all subjective. And it's any individual's interpretation of that. We don't have a USDA grade standard of here's your fancy one, here's your choice, and this is it, and this is how you'll grade. It's open to interpretation. It's a bit like last year when we had the hail and pears, and all of a sudden we had composite pears, and composite pears were pretty much class 2 pears, and all of a sudden now the pear guys are going, well, why can't you sell pears in Indonesia this year? I said, well, guess what? Africa's got pears this year and they are covered in hail hits. So, that was the reason why there was demand. That was the only reason anyone bought our pears last year. So we are inconsistent. Our across the line, and this is half the problem with these guys buying crops off the vine and cash up front at shed door. They know. Most of these guys don't have a bloody clue about the industry. Most of them are new. All they want to know is, I want to do oranges to China. What have you got? Well, first three questions: what size, what grade, what pack do you want? And if they can't answer those three quickly, then they don't know what they're doing. If they don't know what they're doing, they're going to lose money. Not only that, they're going to damage the reputation of the Australian industry. But unfortunately, some growers and some packers see the money, see the cash up front, see no risk, beauty, paying, who cares, there it's gone. And it does. It affects the overall image and brand of Australia. And we don't. Australian exporters aren't savvy enough or community minded enough to get together and say, hey guys, let's actually try and lift the standard of what we're doing. We're just too busy cutting each other's throats.
So when you talk about the exporters, you're talking about the traders?
I'm talking about anyone who exports, and that's the grower packers that are doing it, the exporters that are doing it, the traders like myself that are doing it, the Asians that are coming down here and buying it and sending it. They're part of the problem. They're part of the export community now. We've got a fair bit of work to do.
With those standards, because we're not just talking. We're not talking about just one crop.
No.
You're talking about different crops, citrus, So those standards, they'll be really hard to set. I'm thinking, because you're talking about 20, 50, 60 different. So if we started with 4 or 5 industries, I guess. But
it's almost impossible to do. It's almost impossible, and unfortunately, until the growers start realising the damage that some of them are doing by doing it themselves and doing it early, picking those grapes early because hey, it's Chinese New Year in 3 weeks. Although they're not ready, should be right. Let's get them in. Let's get them in early. We'll make a killing. And it's greed that generally is screwing it all up.
It's good that Chinese New Year is so late this year.
There'll be still something that goes in early, I'm sure. I've got to get this gas.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and I guess no one will.
I was just going to ask one more favour. So I wasn't really sure what role you played, but given that you do play a significant role in actually facilitating mango exports and